All right. Oh my goodness, this is like a big reunion. It's so great to I see many people that we know from North Carolina joining us. And I see friends from Utah and people that we know from Utah. And then I also see Oregon contingency. So that's
Yay!
awesome, right?
Oh, I see Tennessee too. I'm seeing some
Oh,
Tennessee
yep, I
folks.
see Tennessee.
Yes, welcome.
Oh,
All right. Welcome everybody on this Wednesday afternoon. I know that many of you all are on spring break right now. Some of you are greatly anticipating spring break, but we're so glad to join you, to have you joining us for our first Elevate conversation. And we're so excited to start this off with the topic of student engagement. Yes. I am Nancy Mangum, and I am co-founder of Leading Edge Learning, along with my partner in crime and good friend, Teresa Gibson. And so I'm glad to be here with you all. This has been a great opportunity for us to bring together so many people that we've worked with over the past several years, and others as well into this, into our community of learners as we kick off this Elevate series. Teresa and I are formerly from, we worked together for many years at the Friday Institute, which is where we worked with a lot of you all, and are excited to say that during this crazy pandemic year, we actually have left the Friday Institute and are now working together in our own organization called Leading Edge Learning. And so we're glad to be with you all today and to see so many familiar faces. A little bit about today, we shared this in the emails, but just we're going to have three amazing, totally awesome, and so excited to have them speakers that are going to share a short presentation with you all. We're going to hold our questions until the end, and after the three, after Patrice and Melissa and Corey have spoken and given their talk, we will jump into a Q&A. And then we're going to have some role-alike conversations to kind of debrief, right? A lot of times you hear something awesome, you get inspired, you want to share some more ideas, or maybe you want to ask a question and kind of troubleshoot some things with some others who have a similar role as you. And so we'll kind of wrap up our day with that. And so that's our format. We know some, a lot of you all are in schools. You might have to jump in and out. That's okay, but we're glad you're here with us today and for as long as you can be here. So like I said, we have three amazing speakers. We have Patrice representing our East Coast here. She is in North Carolina. We have Corey, I guess representing that mountain time in Utah. Still, what part of the country do you call that? Is Utah part of is it the Rockies? I don't know, the Rocky, I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
the Mountain West, the Rockies.
The Mountain West. There you go, Corey, representing the Mountain West. There we go. Thank you. And then Melissa out there in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon. So we are glad to have this national perspective today. And so I think most of you have dropped your role into the chat. I've seen principals and instructional coaches. I've seen some teachers. Oh, and look, I even saw some of our Wyoming friends. So that's awesome. But if you haven't done so, drop your name or drop your role into the chat and where you're joining from. And maybe you might even recognize some people that you know there. So you can always give them a shout out. We want you to use the chat to share reactions, share resources or ideas as we go through these first three talks. And so we can use that chat to do that. Yes, I've seen North Carolina, Tennessee, oh, Washington, great, Scott. Yes, we should have mapped that, right? We needed to see all of but great to have you all joining us today. So I know you all didn't come here to hear Teresa and I talk. You came to hear these three educators. And so we're going to kick this off today with Patrice Hardy. Patrice is a friend of mine from way back when I worked in Wake County Public Schools. She is an English language arts teacher, and I'm sure she'll give you some more details about herself in her presentation. But I'm excited to get this started with Patrice. And so as Patrice is getting her screen share going, I'm going to stop sharing. We'll stop sharing our screen and we'll let Patrice jump in here and we'll kick this thing off with Patrice.
Hello, everyone. I just want to give a quick, I saw some people from Johnston County. I live in Clayton, go JoCo. And I'm just going to talk to you about 15 minutes about student engagement in the time of Corona. Now, I'm an old 26-year veteran teaching ELA, so I will use a lot of references to that. So just get ready. Be ye also ready, my darling dears and lovely loves. My name is Patrice Hardy. I have been teaching for 26 years and I have the gray hair to prove everyone. Some have individual students' names, some have the names of my 2 children and grandkids, but you can reach me at pyhardy1971@gmail.com and you can follow me on Twitter. I only have 47 followers, but I love Twitter at Hardy, Hardy Speaks. So I always open up with a quote, but there is a quote in Their Eyes Are Watching God by the legendary Zora Neale Hurston that says, there are years that ask questions and years that answer. Y'all, we have been in one of those years. I don't know which one, but I think we've had both questions and answers in this year of Corona. And I hope that you've had peace and challenges. I hope that you've had good times and things that have made you say, let me see if I can rethink that. And I'm hoping that student engagement is some of the things that we have rethought. So we all had to stop, flip on a dime, and start all the way over last March. So the question is, who is Zooming who? And I use Zoom because, that's Aretha Franklin illusion. But whether you were using Zoom, Google Meet, Carrier Pigeon, Pony Express, however you got into the homes and lives of your students this past year, congratulations, congratulations. So I'm talking a little bit about student engagement. So you have to capture their hearts and capture their minds. And I want to make sure that I lead with this. Social emotional learning strategies have to be rooted in equity and real world connections. We have to love them as they are, for who they are and who they can become. If you are doing social and emotional learning with conformity in mind and teaching them how to behave, that is not going to get them ready for the real world. So I just want you to think about looking at Dina Simmons' work on social emotional learning and her liberated work. Because a lot of us, we throw a little question out there, but it's so important that you root your SEL in equity and social justice practices so that you can welcome your students for who they are and who they will become in your rooms, okay? So one of the things that we've done, and when I say we, teachers all over the world, but now I'm thinking specifically what I do is I'm very, very purposeful with names and identity in my students, in my classroom. So one of the first lessons we do is a flip grid on my name is and it is not, because I encourage my students to never let anyone mispronounce your name. Your name was given to you by your families, and it is not a difficulty or a stretch to expect people to call you what your mother and father gave you. So we spend a lot of time on that. And we talk about that in the chat. So one of the things that we do in my class, I'm going to give you things and you can write it down and we can ask it at the questions. How we do attendance in our classes is I had a student who said, Ms. Hardy, do it like this. So we call it the Jordan Ray 3-step method of attendance. There's a vibe check, VIBE, because everything's a vibe check question up for the day. And it could be, did you do your work for the week? It could be, what is our attendance procedure for asynchronous days? And it's ABCD. So you respond in the chat, and then when you hear your name on the attendance, you click enter. And I do not require my students to put their cameras on. I find it invasive. And I just don't believe in that. But my rule is when mama calls your name, you need to answer. I will call your name 3 times. After that, I'm calling your mama. Is Nancy all right? I have called her 3 times and I don't know where she is. And eventually she pops back up on my screen. We do interest inventories in the beginning of the year to find out what they like. You know, do you have any siblings that have gone to our school? Did I teach your sister or brother? So I can build relationships with my students. And the chat feature is our friend. It's where they interact with each other. And what happens after the relationships have been built in the classrooms, they will answer. Like if a student asks a question in the chat, the other kids will answer it for you before you even have to, because we build a family in our classrooms. And you can build real relationships online with students. I tire, and it bothers me. This is a Patrice thing. When people say, well, I can't build relationships because I can't see their faces. Do y'all remember pen pals back in the day? I mean, I am that old, where you only saw someone's penmanship and that was your very best friend. But that was still your friend, right? So what is the difference between a pen pal when you were young and seeing someone's avatar of their dog or their favorite anime feature on a screen? So let's not keep that narrative going that I can't build relationships because I can't see their faces. As I tell my colleagues in staff meetings, some of y'all need to cut y'all cameras off. Woo. After you have captured their hearts, yes, I said it, then you can capture their minds. Y'all, less is more. If you having 50, 11 things you have these children doing every day, don't do it. You're not going to remember how to do it. They're not going to remember how to do it. Teach the tech. So what we do in our classes, we have a web-based 1-pager in our Hive that has everything that they're going to use in it. And we teach it before we expect them to be able to use it. Okay? We teach it before we expect them to use it. Now I got to get back. Hold on. There we go. So every week on Sundays, I upload a weekly schedule for my students that says, this is everything we're going to do for the week. It has the links uploaded in Google Classroom. So on Sunday night, before I lay my head down, I know what I'm doing every day for that week. So that Sunday upload with a Monday delivery gives them the whole week to manage their time and to plan their week. Even though I have deadlines built in through the week, they have a Friday grace deadline for all assignments. A Friday grace deadline. So even though something might be due on Wednesday, you know you have until Friday at 3 o'clock, that's your grace. When I have them working on things in class, what we will call dead space, I will throw polls out on Google every 15 minutes to see, to make sure that they're still engaged and to keep them talking and thinking about things. And sometimes the polls are about what we're doing. It could be, is this a noun or a verb? Or it could be something like, okay, hot dogs or hamburgers for cookouts. And doing that poll, I found out I have kids who are vegetarian. So for the next poll, I said hot dogs, hamburgers, or a vegan option. So those are things. So from now on, whenever I'm doing a poll, now I know I have kids who don't eat meat. I found out kids don't take naps. I have kids that do. So when I'm talking about naps, if we're having a discussion, I try to make sure I'm including all of my babies. So another thing that we've done is we made a very protracted effort to teach our students the strategies, skills, and habits to successfully navigate remote learning. Because one of the phrases that we have banned in our classroom is, I don't like remote learning. This isn't good. I just can't do this. I said, sweeties, we've been doing this since last March. Let it go. Let it drop it. So we said, instead say, I haven't learned strategies and skills to successfully navigate remote learning. So we talked to all of our students that were doing well. That doesn't mean everybody had an A. Everyone who felt like they were doing well, we asked them, what is it that you are doing that is helping you be successful? And then we curated those and developed a remote learning strategy sheet that we share with our students at the beginning of every semester. And then we add to it with new strategies and skills. And then we teach them throughout the month. This month is organizational skills. So we talked about how can you continue to be organized, remembering the due dates, teaching them skills like I didn't know that Google Classroom gives you a list of to-dos. My students taught me that. And I will give them credit of all the things that we do. Every week we do Wonder Wednesday support hours because everything in my classroom is cutesy. I should have been an elementary school teacher. I swear I should have. And that is where they come in and they can get help. And it could be that sometimes they just want to come. I just want to come in and check in and see how you doing. Oh, I'm fine, baby. You good? You need anything? I just want to work on my work in here with you. Go right ahead. You need me to play music? No music? No problem. After our live meet, because in our district, we have live meeting for the first 45 and they have independent work time. For some of our kids, we make them stay during independent work time to share your screen with me so I can see what you're doing. We have them, if they want a quiet place to work, so they can go to what we call the buzz-in room. Because in our classroom, we are the bees. Because 100 years ago, when I worked at central office in Wake County, we read a book called The Leadership of the Hive. And it clearly delineated for me and cemented the belief that honey is the only substance capable of sustaining life. It contains everything you need, including water. And I believe that every day I walk into my classroom, I'm giving my students honey, because learning is honey, because that's the one thing that could sustain their life. And I take that very seriously with my babies. And so everything is buzz. So we have buzz in, we have buzzworthy news. We have to keep buzzing. So those are the things that I do to engage my students every day. So we have one band, one sound. That is a reference to, anybody know? Anybody? Drumline, good. Making sure that you have consistency of voice and message. If I said it, I tell my students, if I made a mistake, I will honor the mistake that is written. If I make a mistake on a due date, I'll eat that. That's on me. I make sure that I'm communicating to parents and that everything I say, I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm one of those that will email everybody and their mama if it's going to help me help one of my babies. They're they're special ed case managers, they're administrators, they're student service contacts, they're CA teachers, they're parents, they're big brothers. Whoever's going to get this work to me, I'm calling them. I am that person. So this is something that I want to leave you with. Yep, I'm good with time. I am weary, but I keep standing and fighting because my students deserve the same spirit of excellence in a remote setting that I deliver face-to-face. Now, it is almost impossible to recreate it every day, but I bring my honey to my hive. And every day I teach like it is my last. So in this season, please show your teachers how much they mean to the school, to the students, and the community in this May, in spirit and in truth. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll be here for the rest of our time together. I'm going to stop sharing, Nancy.
Wow. Thank you, Patrice.
Awesome.
I wanted you to put that last, your ending statement back up there again. I was trying to take a picture of it, but
okay, hold on.
That was all. Oh yeah, you gonna put it back up there? Perfect.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, that was awesome.
There you go.
Awesome, Patrice. And you know, and I bet you have a bunch more followers now on Twitter.
Hey, if I get to 50, I'm gonna tell my daughter I'm famous.
You're over 50 right now. We're keeping track.
52.
I need a publicist. I'm gonna make her be my publicist.
That's awesome. All right. So thank you, Patrice. It's actually, we're realizing right live in the moment how hard it will be to move from speaker to speaker without you all having the opportunity. But jot down your questions while we make this switch over. And we are going to shift now. Patrice, you opened us so well and were very inspiring. So we want to thank you for sharing your engagement strategies with us. It was chock full. And I am privileged to get to introduce Melissa Lim. So Melissa is a colleague of ours who works in Portland Public Schools. We have known her for, I'm not even sure, quite a while. And I have her role on here as instructional coach. That's not really the title of her role, but I figured it is probably the closest thing you can come to in whatever state or region of the states you are in. So Melissa works at the district level, and she actually supports TOSAs. So in Oregon, those are teachers on special assignment. And I would say, and Melissa, you can jump in here at any point, they're pretty close to an instructional coach role.
Yep.
And so that is where Melissa is situated. And so from her vantage point, she's going to talk to us about creatively engaging adults to creatively engage students. And so with that, I will mute and pass it off to Melissa.
Thanks, Teresa. And let me share my screen now.
And I just want to be in Melissa's, like, her background just is so amazing, right? There you go. I just want to jump right in there with you, Melissa.
Okay, let me get set up. All right, so you can see here on my slide that I have a shortened link there for you. And so once you get to that link, bit.ly/elevate-LIM, you'll be able to click on the link for a resource sheet that I also have for you. And it's just got some of the resources of tools and things that I'm using today while I talk with you. So I'll just give you another 10 seconds or so to get that shortened link down. And I'm trying to organize my windows, and so I'm looking all over the place. All right. So I just want to tell you a little bit about me. My name is Melissa Lim, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm coming to you, like Nancy and Teresa said, from Portland, Oregon. Portland rests on the traditional village sites of Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River here. I started my career in education as an elementary classroom teacher, and for the past 20 plus years or so, I have been in this role of technology integration specialist. So someone that supports teachers and district staff with professional learning related to technology. In my current role, I'm part of what's known as the Learning Technologies team. And I saw in the chat earlier that my boss, Kevin, is in the presentation. So hi, Kevin. And the Learning Technologies team is fairly new. Previously, I was the only person sort of doing this work in the district. And the Learning Technologies team, what's great is that we're within the Information Technology department. So we're really providing that instructional connection to the more technical side of the house. And I really, really love the work that I do in that role. This year, we have grown from just me to a team of 18 people. So it's a lot of change to get used to. But our leadership team in Learning Technologies is supporting a bunch of instructional coaches. There's a team of 1 coaches that supports K-5 literacy. And then there's another grant that has instructional coaches for middle school for grades 6-8. So that's just a little bit about me and my role. And even though I love the work that I do, I want to say that I really hate my job. And some of you may also have the same feeling this year. And why do I hate my job? Well, as Patrice was talking about coronavirus, this is probably the main reason that I hate my job so much. And as I said, we were really focused on the instructional side of things, supporting teachers, creating professional learning, developing workshops, all those things that I love to do had to be put on hold once we locked down last year. And so this is spring break right now for Portland. And last year we locked down the Friday before spring break. So it's about a year now. And once this happened, we started furiously planning with other departments, trying to figure out what is school going to look like now. And none of us had any idea this was going to last for a year, as I'm sure a lot of you also had that same thought. And so we're planning, we're coming up with lessons, we're trying to collaborate with other departments in our district, trying to figure out what's this going to look like. And once it happened, teachers got some professional learning because of course they had to transition to using digital tools. And some teachers are very familiar, some teachers not very familiar at all. So they're getting some learning, but it's really more training and how do you use this tool? And so our role in learning technologies really started focusing on technical support. And that was really hard for me because it was, I'd say the first 3 months and actually through December of 2020, we're working close to 60-hour weeks just providing tech support for teachers. And so spending a lot of time on Meet, Google Meet, and Zoom. And so in order to try to just have some fun, I started playing around a lot with filters, trying to figure out, bring some humor back into my life because I feel like I'm just being dragged down by tech support. So after becoming an expert in filters and virtual backgrounds, I realized that thinking about my job, I was really pivoting from this instructional side to this more technical side. And that pivot really made my mental health decline over this period of time. I started having a lot of anxieties about things I normally would not have anxiety about. I'm sleeping less. The things that I previously loved to do, like working with teachers, learning, teaching, developing workshops. Teachers, after that initial spate of PD at the beginning of the year, they were not interested. They're still not interested in attending additional PD. And so luckily, our learning technologies team is great. We meet every day, so we have the support of each other. And I really started thinking, how can I get back some of those things that I really love into my job so that I don't hate my job? And the coaches that we work with on our team, the ones that go in, they work with students and teachers in schools. So they're meeting with their schools virtually and they're doing coaching. They get to interact with students. We actually already had set time on the calendar to meet with this group of coaches that are on our team every Thursday. So we're meeting with these coaches weekly. And I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to get back some of that love for my work and my job. And so when we're talking about engagement, I came across this really great article in ASCD, and it was about this virtual engagement framework that this instructional coach named Melissa Childs, you can see there on the slide, she created this framework after she was thinking about the 3 types of student engagement, and she was observing how they showed up in her virtual classroom. And in that resource sheet that I linked to earlier, there's the link to the article, but she gives some really great ideas of things you can do in those 3 areas of engagement. And so what I'd like to share with you is how my team, working with adults and coaches and teachers, what we have done in those areas of engagement so that hopefully when they're working with their schools, they can see what we're modeling with them, and then they can model that with their teachers, and then those teachers in turn model those strategies with their students. So cognitive engagement really focuses on authentic experiences, higher order questioning, and learning strategies. And these are the resources that we used with our coaches to hit those areas. And so you can see here, I've got some books, and these are all linked in that resource sheet. But the first one is from Elena Aguilar, who some of you may know. And she has written this book, The Art of Coaching, which is awesome. And it's really focusing on effective strategies to transform pedagogy, transform schools. If you didn't know, she has this accompanying workbook that goes with the art of coaching, and it has tons of activities in it. And so we have used a lot of those activities for role playing, for having facilitative conversations with teachers, between coach and teachers. And so on these Thursday meetings that we have, they rotate every week between specific topics. So the first week is the first Thursday of the month is the art of coaching. The second Thursday is this, the third Thursday is this, and so on. So that's been a great resource. If you're familiar with her work, you also know she offers in-person workshops as well. And so we attended one of those at the beginning of the year as a team, and that was really helpful. And she actually was there teaching most of it, facilitating most of it. So that was great. The second resource is the Distance Learning Playbook, which I'm sure many of you are also familiar with. So Doug Fisher, Nancy Fry, and John Hattie, they came out with that. It was like right at the time when everybody locked down. So they must, I don't know, they could see into the future, and they were really able to capitalize on introducing this book and bringing the strategies into what does distance learning look like? Here are things you can try. Here are things that work. So they really used their background in visible learning and brought that book out. If you didn't know, they already have come out with another book about hybrid and blended learning. And in Portland, we are getting ready for hybrid learning in about 2 weeks. And so we've all purchased this book already too, to get some more tips. And the last book is Learning First, Technology Second. There's a series of 2 books. This is from Liz Kolb out of the University of Michigan. And Liz developed something called the Triple E framework. And that stands for engage, enhance, and extend. And so she has this framework so that it helps you evaluate technology resources and use those in designing authentic lessons. So you're not just using technology for technology's sake, you're using technology in an effective way that is meaningful and relevant for your students. The second book just includes more strategies, case studies, and research, and then tools for student success. So that's cognitive engagement. The next type of engagement is emotional engagement. And this is another Elena Aguilar book that we've used called Onward. It really focuses on the emotional resilience of teachers, cultivating that resilience. And there's another workbook that goes with it. The thing that's great about this book is that she has it organized by months. Each month has a theme. And for every theme, there are numerous activities, like a ton of activities in the workbook. And so we use that regularly to hit the emotional engagement of topics like growth mindset, developing your learning community, and just continuing to build those strong relationships among our team, because not everybody knows each other. A lot of us have worked together, but some of us didn't know each other at all at the beginning of this year. So that's a really great book to build those relationships and just offer a safe space for playing and exploring. And the last type of engagement is behavioral engagement. So this would be things like class norms, restorative practices, collaboration, collaborative work time. And so we hit this type of engagement by using one of our Thursdays to talk about anti-racism, racial equity work, offering collaborative work time between the 2 different teams of coaches or cross-collaborating. And then we're also, as a team, going through an equity training right now and just holding space for those sometimes uncomfortable discussions and debriefs about race. We also have a Google chat room that for our team, that's a great way to communicate when we're not meeting together virtually, just to have real-time, fast, quick communication instead of email. So next, practices. I had mentioned earlier that I hate my job, and my hope is that I'll be able to learn from some of those things that we did this year to bring them not only into hybrid learning, but also bring them into fall 2021, hopefully, when we're going back to school face-to-face. one of the things, a couple of the things that we've learned this year, I've learned this year, is that we've really maximized our use of technology to interact and connect with each other. So we will be able to go one-to-one, I believe in grades 3 to 12, because of all the technology we've purchased this year for students to use during distance learning. So the ways to interact and connect and also strengthen, we've strengthened relationships, although that may seem not always, that seems sort of weird virtually, but I think for some students and teachers, we've strengthened relationships. But I also think that we've really strengthened relationships between families and school, because I don't think a lot of families understood necessarily what's happening in school. And you know that because, or at least I know that because I was doing all that tech support, and a lot of the questions were coming from parents who didn't understand what's happening in school, and a lot of the stuff was new for them. So hopefully be able to bring that back. And then also just, I hope that teachers see the value in using technology in their instruction. And I know there are some voices that say, I'm never going to use technology again when we go back to school. But I'm hoping that's not true, because people have gotten so used to these tools, and then that will really help us narrow our digital use divide and provide equitable opportunities for all students to use technology and get access to resources. So I want to share the very last thing is a video. So this is in the spirit of just trying to find some joy in my job. And I'm going to share this video, and give me a thumbs up when I get to that slide to make sure the sound is on. I think I have it optimized. And just thanks for inviting me, and thanks for letting me share my story. Thanks for listening. Here we go.
Little ditty about Jack and Diane, two American kids growing up in the heartland. Jackie's gonna be a football star. Diane's debutante backseat of Jackie's car. Sucking on a chili dog, 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 chili dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog, chili, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on. Sucking on chili dogs, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on chili, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog, sucking on chili dog. A little ditty about Jack and Diane, two American kids sucking on a chili dog. Nice. Sucking on chili dogs, sucking on a dog, sucking on a chili dog.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Melissa.
I know. This is forever going to be in my head.
I know.
Thank
And
you.
that's kind of what COVID's like, right? The same words day after day. Just keep on going with
Same
it.
words, different day. Oh, and I love it. I love the nonsense. So thank you, Melissa, for bringing us that district level voice and perspective and sharing your struggles. I feel like I have lived in the world you were talking about all year, and feeling like everything's extra and being put in the extra category too. So Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to move us to introduce our school leader voice. And so this is a newer friend to Nancy and I. We have Corey Henwood with us from Utah, and he is going to talk to us about engagement at his school and a lot of unique pieces of his school. And so we had hoped to have Corey speaking for us at Leading Schools last year, and that did not happen. So we're really thrilled to introduce him to you all today. And with that, I will pass it over to Corey.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Just one moment. Let's go ahead and share my screen here with y'all.
Corey, while you're doing that, we can all just sing a verse of
Yeah, just sing a verse of Chili Dog, would you? Oh gosh, that's funny. Okay. Well, here we are. All right, folks. Well, hey, I'm Corey Henwood. I'm excited to be with you today. I am an innovation director at our school district, but I'm also a school leader, founder at Launch High School and our online schools in Cedar City, Utah. I come from Nova Scotia, Canada, so that is my home. I have not been back there for some time. Of course, with COVID and whatnot, I look forward to getting back there. Goodness, what a year this has been. You know, what a year. Being an educator has never been so overwhelming. And that includes our school and district leaders, where they've seemingly always been putting out fires, but this has never felt so real as it has this year. Everything is on fire, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to move on. I'm not talking about getting back to normal. That return to normal is not really what I'm looking for. Instead, what I'm looking for is to figure out how we can move beyond this pandemic to a new, better, right? There were systemic issues throughout education, the old normal, that I don't long to get back to. So how do we move on from what we've learned? How do we move from BC to AD? Are you guys seeing my full screen, by the way? Just to be clear. Okay. BC to AD, what I mean by that is from before coronavirus to after disease. We have a choice right now. If we want to reassemble the old system, reinstate the things we left behind from last year, should we refocus on mile-wide, inch-deep Googleable curriculum, high-stakes standardized test scores, instructional minutes that are fixed for everyone, or pacing guides? I mean, or instead of return to that old normal, can we build a new, better? Even now, amid a global pandemic, great teachers are taking this opportunity to really focus their classroom, not just on engaging students. And we've talked about engaging today, and I love that. But there is a difference between engaging and empowering your students, right? Engaging them often refers to pulling them into our content and our interests and our curriculum. But I think we can do more. I think we can empower students, give them the skills and the ability they need to pursue their passions and their interests. Right. And so one thing that's been obvious, and that is key to this empowering type of education I'm talking about, has been relationships. And both those who've spoken before me have really hit on this. The impact on mentoring relationships on student success is key. And isn't that why you got into education in the first place? I mean, really, I know it was for me. I became a teacher. I think back to where I grew up in Nova Scotia, Canada. My 7th grade math teacher told me every day that I was smart and I had limitless potential. And it was nice growing up in Nova Scotia, Canada, where my mother was my 7th grade math teacher. And, you know, that's the thing, whether we are educators or parents, we have the power to empower people. And really, many of us became educators to connect with students, to help and to mentor them. And secondly, many great teachers are taking the opportunity to personalize education for students this year, right? To offer flexibility, different pathways, allowing students to explore their interests, being flexible around the pace that students take as they progress. There are a lot of great things about personalized, maybe online, maybe remote, but personalized anytime, anywhere learning. But if it comes without the opportunities to engage and connect with a caring mentor, then you know all well that learning takes a nosedive, right? So likewise, we should offer personalized support as school and district leaders. We should offer personalized support and learning opportunities for teachers, from job-embedded coaching to teachers having to work through things like micro-credentials or other offerings for personalized professional development. These increasing teacher mentorship and personalized support for educators as they move to personalized education for students. In Iron County School District, we've developed a series of micro-credentials, which instead of basically paying for substitutes to come in for pulling teachers out of class for one-size-fits-all PD, we've offered them some choice aligned with our vision to choose an area that they want to explore, to plan and develop and implement that and reflect on it. And when they submit that evidence, they earn a few $100s to validate their time. And what a much better and more empowering model for educators if you think to support them with choice and with caring mentorship. So one of the other things we must do to continue to support our educators is to continue to encourage them to focus beyond the simple curriculum and the pacing guides and these other things that have kind of been, knocked into them for so long. And many of the great teachers now are focusing beyond that to meet the needs of students and give them the skills they need to be successful. Now, those skills aren't recalling facts or being able to compute something that they can do easily on their computer or phone. They're essential transferable skills, both social and emotional skills, interpersonal and interpersonal human skills. And so we asked in our community, asked our parents, our community leaders, business leaders, post-secondary educators, what are the skills students need to be successful in their future? And they came up with these essential 8 skills. We call this Iron Essential 8. It's part of our profile of a graduate. Now, when practicing and developing these skills, even alongside routine curriculum, it makes it so much more meaningful and memorable. And we know that building these skills now is needed more than ever. And so the purpose of school is to help prepare students for their future. So what are great teachers doing now? They're doing just that, beyond just ensuring college and career readiness, beyond that, really beyond just preparing students for something, preparing them for anything, preparing them not just to make a living, but preparing them to make a life. These are the skills that our teachers are focused on right now. And we need to continue to allow them that work to focus on those things instead of beating up the pacing guide and the curriculum, right, as school and district leaders. So think about how you support teachers. Do you support them in not just making a living and being a professional, but making a life? Do you care enough to help them develop social and emotional wellness and a balance to truly make a life for themselves? I mean, so many of our wonderful educators, bless their heart, they're so passionate, but balance, not always their strength. And ultimately, many of them burn out, right? As a leader, you can provide supports that help them, such as, a mental wellness day. Maybe it's some mindfulness training or yoga. Will you maybe limit what you ask of them and respect heaven, respect their contract time, right? When you add duties to them, take others away. Think about what's most essential and focus on that. Teachers need more TLC now and less required PD. Helping them to make a life is not only more of a delightful way to operate as an administrator, it's also way more effective than wearing your teachers down to the bone. It just is. So think back to that and think back also to how we work with students in this manner. Is this what we're doing, preparing them to make a life? Because some of us stress, especially this time of year, so much around things like standardized test scores, right? And this is one of the things I want you to think about. High stakes nature of these tests has driven so much of our previous efforts in education and the work that's assigned to students. Ultimately, there's a common saying, right? If it's not tested, it's not taught. And that's a shame. For those teachers who feel under the gun regarding this issue, that's how they operate. And luckily, these things for both students and teachers are becoming less and less the gatekeeper to make or break a lifetime of opportunity. And I'm grateful for that, because most of what is on these tests are routine skills that are easily scored by machines. And the irony here is that if it can be scored by a machine today, it can be automated by a machine tomorrow. And so what are we doing? We're not preparing students for their life by preparing them for these tests. And these aren't great indicators that you're doing things right. But what will not be automated are those essential skills, those human skills we talked about. And those can be, luckily, not entirely separate from what we do in academics. They can be integrated into what we teach, the academic standards we teach. We can go deeper into what we teach, combining instruction with the chances to develop these essential skills. And as a school leader, you can exhibit these types of things and really promote a school-wide vision for developing these transferable skills. Some of the things we've done in Iron County School District and at Launch High School include exhibitions of these learning, from entrepreneurial events like Shark Tanks or TEDx style events, student maker fairs, or student film festivals. These are the types of events and exhibitions that allow you as a school leader to put on the best face that you can to the public, and not just simply rely on what is on your school report card and your standardized test scores that go out to the public, but show them what really matters, right? And so beyond that, we also use at Launch High School, we use the mastery transcript, which helps to highlight holistically the skills that students have learned in those essential areas that we talked about earlier, and highlight a portfolio of evidence. Now, this is so much more meaningful than a simple one numeral GPA score or letter grade. This is the type of results that we want to share with our post-secondary partners to get to know our students in their selection process. So how can you do all this? How can you take and simultaneously help students to find their passions and apply their learning and learn the skills that they need to be successful to make changes for the world for good? Well, there's no silver bullet to empowering students in this work, but at Launch High School, I'll tell you a couple of things we found. We've co-designed design challenges to work as projects for our students, to help students apply their learning, learn essential skills, and to solve real problems. And that's empowering for students. It really is. And it's also empowering for our teachers. It strikes the right balance for them between teaching, mentoring, and preparing students for life. So some of those examples, if you're curious, include some of these things that our students have co-designed with our teachers, right? In biology, they're looking at something, if a student's passionate about hunting and the outdoors, they look at designing solutions for hunters that are inspired by the properties of animals that they're studying, or designing solutions in our English and social studies classes for combating fake news, hate speech, other inappropriate online sharing, but also respecting the First Amendment to the Constitution. So designing solutions for these things brings in that real world element, that authentic assessment piece, and empowers our students to take on things that they are passionate about and they will find engaging ultimately, right? Students begin to take ownership over this in their own learning in these design projects. And some of these same principles for designing with and not just for people bring about more ownership in what we do as school and district leaders, working alongside teachers and parents. Educators in our district, nearly in every decision we make in our district, includes a design team of teachers and parents to help design the needs for all stakeholders when we make these decisions, and use that process to navigate difficult undertakings like standards-based grading that we took on as a district this last couple of years, and our new opening of our competency-based high school at Launch High School. So we've got a design challenge in front of us right now. Are we designing or maybe redesigning our schools for students' futures? Or are we still designing them based on the nostalgia of our past? So this is something you need to think about. How do we redesign and retool school to focus on what's most important to us, to incorporate what we've learned through this pandemic and why we got into teaching in the first place? This is our design challenge. Let's not go back to the traditional focus of calculations that a computer can do for us, or goodies we can Google in our curriculum, or the equivalent of bubble sheets in our standardized assessments that are stressful and are not really great indicators of students' future success. And a one-size-fits-all approach, right, in terms of pacing and personalization. It's just not there. Are we going to go back to that? Unfortunately, if we didn't know this before, that this was broken in our traditional focus, COVID has made that even more clear. Think about how people have shifted towards taking that routine Googleable curriculum and putting it online through videos or whatever else, okay? Or simply focusing on the same type of assessments that we've already done in a virtual environment, right? Is this a good indicator of where students are at? No, but this transition from taking a traditional model and moving it into remote or computer-centric instruction just doesn't work. We also see that with the hanging of our heads when we talk about Zoom school. Heaven, right? We can't be doing this for hours of one size fits all synchronous instruction. We just can't. And if you think that this is the pathway forward, then I think our day of reckoning is coming. It brings to mind this quote from General Shinseki of the US Army. If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. If all we are as educators is content delivery mechanisms and assessing memory, then we will be replaced by machines. So in order to avoid the tragic automation of education that we're seeing here, we need to take a different approach, right? We need to focus more on those essential skills, those skills that are going to help prepare both students and teachers to make a balanced life. So can we lead as leaders and talk about focus on those things? Can we lead in helping our students and our teachers to co-design problems or co-design solutions to real problems that we face, right? Can we do that? And can we also seek to personalize the supports we have for both teachers and students? Personalize the supports, offer personal mentors, flexibility and choice, voice and path, and even pace for our students and our teachers as they take on new learning. This can be our future focus. So to wrap up, it brings me back to where I grew up in rural Nova Scotia, Canada. There's this phenomenon, it's called the tidal bore. So outside my window where I grew up was the Bay of Fundy, had the highest tides in the world. And when that bay comes in, it creates this phenomenon called the tidal bore where it creates these huge waves in the Shubenacadie River. Now, what happens there is people come from all over to try to ride the waves in the river. And you know, this is exciting times, and I just want to make this analogy, right? When people come to ride the waves in the river, they either come, ride the waves and make the fun happen, or B, they sit on the shoreline and they poke fun at those who eat it, right? Or they are renting their gear in the clubhouse and it happens so fast that they come out and they totally miss it and they go, what happened? So the analogy here is with changing happening so fast in education, are you going to be the one to ride the waves, steer the ship, and make things happen? Or are you going to stand on the shoreline and poke fun at efforts to innovate? Or will you have your head in the sand for the next couple of years and come out looking like what happened to education that I knew, right? Now, these are exciting times, but going alone could be scary. So I want to encourage you to ride confidently into the future. You'll need all hands on deck. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Corey. I am so inspired from all of our speakers. And so now I'm going to steal the screen back from you, Corey, just so you know.
Go for it.
Okay. I didn't want to like violently rip it away. So what we're going to do now is transition into some Q&A time, and the structure will work so that you all have the opportunity to ask all three of our educators questions right now, whole group. And following that, we'll go into breakout rooms. So while I talk you through kind of how to rename yourself for the breakout rooms, I want you to start thinking about questions you might have. It can go to any of the speakers, or you could toss it out there. Do any of you know anything about, or can any of you speak to type questions? You can drop them in the chat. And while you all are thinking, I'm going to do a little preview of what we need you to do to get into roll-alike breakout rooms. And so what we're going to ask you to do is rename yourself for the room that you want to go into. And so as you see on the name tag, put the number in front of your name. Please remember to keep your name. Otherwise, we just see a bunch of ones and it's hard for people to interact in breakouts. And so we know everybody has interesting titles, and we're asking you to generously point yourself in the direction of the one you relate to the most so that you can be in the room with your colleagues. We're going to, well, before, does anyone have questions about renaming before I jump on or move on?
That way I can be putting everybody into breakout rooms while we
do Q&A.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, Lee, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So to rename yourself, I guess I didn't do a very good job. if you find a picture of yourself in the participants tab, if you're not seeing the participants tab, scroll to the bottom of your screen and it says participants. You should be able to click on it. And then there's a little more menu. When you click that, you can choose rename. The same thing works if you can see your face. There's a little 3 dots up at the top right corner of your actual video. So if your video is on, you'll be able to see that and you can rename yourself in the same place. So what you're going to do is from the list of 6, you're going to say, I identify most with this role. I want to go talk to these people. And that's the number you're going to put in front of your name when you rename yourself. So we want to, just as you see Nancy and I, we want you to have a number and then your name.
And this will ensure that you get into a room with people who have similar roles.
Yes.
Who you'd like to talk with.
And Janice, I think I can rename you. If you want to private chat me a number, I will put that number in front of your name for you. All right. And so thank you so much to all of our educator speakers. We are so thrilled and inspired by the conversation. As we go into Q&A now, you are welcome to ask all 3 of them a question or one of them specifically about something that you want to hear more on. And so at this point, I will stop sharing our screen. We've got several minutes of Q&A before we pop into breakout rooms together.
And Teresa, if people want to put their questions in the chat, or if you want to use your microphone, because I know sometimes it's easier to just ask the question. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question. All right, well, I'll kick off the question since you all are being timid right now. I'll kick off the question, and I'm curious, Patrice, you talked about right at the beginning, you showed your document, and I can't remember what it was called, but I think it was kind of your list of technology tools that you were using.
We call it our technology one-pager. Yes.
One-pager, that's what it was. Yes, it's simple, right? Keep it simple. So your technology one-pager. So how do you, did you continue to add to that as the year went on? And
actually, we took away from that as the year went on. So we introduced it last semester, and there was a tool that my students that I found, I liked it. They hated it. It was called, I don't want to say the name because my kids hated it, but they said, Miss Hardy, don't do this ever again. And when I looked at, so it wasn't that it was difficult for them to access. They didn't like the format. And I could get the same information from a different app that they did like. So I took it off the list. So in second semester, I didn't even use it. So the things that they said they liked, we kept. And so I do try to do a lot of asking them, okay, what do y'all like? Do you not like it? Do you like it? Perfect example, when I was doing African-American Lit in the fall, I asked them which projects did they like? What did they like about it? And so I was revamping it for the spring, and I was going to take off the visual album that I do for Their Eyes Are Watching God. And overwhelmingly, most of my kids said, we loved it. It was the best project I've ever done. So their feedback kept that entire assessment in my repertoire. Because I thought they didn't like it. And I think we shouldn't assume what the students like. Same thing with teachers. Don't assume what they like. One of my soapboxes I've been on for Teacher Appreciation Week is ask us what we want. We might surprise you. We might not want a whole lot of stuff, but a pen ain't it. But ask us what we want. I'll say it louderly, ask us what we want. And it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. Have people stop sending emails. Teach people how to not reply all. Those are the little things that'll make all of us happy. I mean, it's the little things. So yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrice. And if you are willing to share that link to your one-pager, I think a couple of people would love to see it. So if you're willing. All right. What other questions do you all have for these awesome 3 educators?
So while people think, I'm going to jump in with one with Corey. Corey, can you talk to us more about your mastery transcript, how that came to be and what's in it?
Yeah, so luckily we have a lot of support from our state and our competency-based education planning and implementation grants. One of the supports they offer that the state procured was the Master Transcript Consortium, which beyond a transcript is a lot of help for us as a team as we develop a competency-based school. But the Master Transcript has come about as we've taken our Essential 8 skills and highlighted those mastery credits on our transcript. It's allowed us to really highlight the work of students as a portfolio of their work and share to even the most selective schools who try to differentiate between 4.0 students. Look at a body of evidence of really meaningful work. And so it came about through our community effort to, one, establish a Portrait of a Graduate, two, to operationalize that in our reporting of what we find most important for our students. And that's what we've done with the Master Transcript. It's still in its infancy, by the way, with us. We're a new school, Launch High School, brand new school this year. So it's not like we've been doing that for a long time. We're new to that. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so Corey, not to sound like a newscaster here, but if you were going to look back on the past year, what's the biggest mistake you've made? And how would, and then changed it, in the positive,
Yeah, we, one thing, this is true both with our online schools that I manage as well as Launch High School, where you have a competency-based progression, a way for students to move at their own pace and as quickly as they're able. I've learned a lot about timely interventions. We've done some of those this year. We had some in place before the beginning of the year, but really need a lot more systemic and timely interventions to provide to students. And I don't know how to foresee that, what would be best, but think of whatever you think is sufficient for interventions and then go plus 10 probably as far as how you're going to intervene and provide tiered systems of support for your students. Because ultimately, students, if they're not given that timely support, will ultimately, in a competency-based model, fall behind quickly. And so we've had to make some adjustments and help students and reach out more frequently. So good question.
All right. So right now we actually have, I think we're ready to go into breakouts. Is that right, Nancy? Are we good? Okay, so I did drop the numbers into the chat again if you had forgotten which numbers they were. So if you still are working on renaming yourself, don't stress. We can always help you and then get you into a breakout room if you end up in the main room with us just asking for help. We're good with that. As you go into the breakout rooms, this really is for us about elevating educator voice, which means everybody in the room, including our speakers, will be considered peers and participants in our discussions. And we want to give you just a couple of high-level ways to think about your discussion in your breakouts this afternoon. And so thinking across the three speakers, some great talking points on what inspired you today, kind of what aspirations do you have having listened to the speakers, but also make sure you lend your voice and sharing what strategies you have used that have been successful, because we learn best when we learn together. And so we're going to encourage you to share broadly and widely in your breakout rooms.